Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Towards the end of Book 2 of the Nicomachean Ethics, after he has listed off the various virtues and their opposed vices, Aristotle also talks about emotions that can themselves be arranged in relation to each other, where one would be the mean state as opposed to other states that would be the extremes. And these aren't precisely virtues as such. One that he discusses like that is shame, that he says isn't really a virtue, it's more an emotion, but it does have a mean state. He's going to discuss that later on, and I'm not going to talk about that one here. The ones that I am going to talk about are this spectrum that he lays out between three different feelings and why people feel them and whether they're good or bad to feel. So the good one is what he calls righteous indignation. You notice that term nemesis there. That's the Greek term for this. And it means a becoming upset, a feeling pain, becoming irritated at somebody enjoying good fortune who doesn't deserve to. So the reason why we think nemesis as like this enemy who pursues is because nemesis is kind of setting things right by taking action against those who got away with what they shouldn't have gotten away with. The bank robber who is in his house and never got caught, who's kind of a despicable character. When nemesis occurs, we think of that as kind of poetic justice, and we feel a sense of things being set the way they ought to be. That's because we might be moved by righteous indignation. On one side is malice, a term that you may have recognized if you've seen the video on states or actions or emotions that are bad intrinsically. Epikairekakia, that is literally setting one's hand to doing bad. Messing with people just for the sake of messing with them would be, one way in which that happens in terms of action. And then envy, thonos. This is a term that the Greeks use an awful lot, even talking about their gods, the gods being envious of mortals. We could think of jealousy. Sometimes people want to distinguish between jealousy and enviousness as maybe falling into this. But envy, strictly speaking, is pain that one feels at the good fortune that another person enjoys. So, you're envious of what other people have that you don't have, and you're envious of it because you think that it's a good thing. Even if you do the sour grapes thing of saying, oh, well, what they've got isn't really that good anyway. If you're an envious detractor, deep in your soul, you actually do think it's a good thing. And you're pained by that. And Aristotle says that's a sign of bad character. Notice that the righteously indignant person also feels pain at other people enjoying goods, but he feels it when they don't really deserve those goods. And it's really only righteous indignation if indeed they really don't deserve those goods. Otherwise, it's probably envy hiding itself, masquerading itself as righteous indignation. Because if you're upset about anybody enjoying anything good, or anybody who isn't you enjoying something good, you're envious. And Aristotle says that the malicious person is at the other extreme because they're not really feeling any sort of pain. As a matter of fact, what they feel is pleasure, but they feel pleasure at other people incurring something bad. So it doesn't have to be necessarily doing something bad yourself. You know, the malicious person sees somebody fall down a flight of stairs, and they're like, ah, look at that dummy, you know. And then you say, oh, they hurt themselves. They chipped their tooth. And they're like, man, I wish they'd chipped all their teeth. I wish they'd knocked all their teeth out. Well, that is a sign of maliciousness. So what we've got here are emotions that have to do with pains and pleasures felt in relation to the good or bad fortune of other people. You notice I've got some other ones set down here as well. That's because Aristotle talks about these kinds of emotions in other places besides the Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2. In the Eudemian Ethics, he talks about righteous indignation, envy, and then he says there's a nameless emotion over here where somebody's just like too lax and they don't care about what anybody enjoys what happens to them. They're just unaffected. In the Rhetoric, Aristotle is going to introduce discussion of two other emotions, and he's going to say that both of these are indeed signs of good character. This is very interesting. One of these is what we translate typically as emulation, and it is a kind of pain that you feel. The Greek for it is zelos, the word that we get zeal from, right? It's a pain that you feel when somebody else enjoys a good. So it kind of looks like envy, doesn't it? But it's not envy. It's a pain you feel when that is the kind of good that you wish yourself were enjoying, but you recognize that you still have some work to do before you can enjoy it. So, for example, when you are starting out in a profession and you see the people who are higher up than you, or let me use a great example, being on YouTube, right? I have quite a few subscribers. There are many channels who have many more subscribers than me. And if I was an envious person, I would, anytime that somebody's got more subscribers than me, I'd say, that's terrible. They don't deserve it. You know, I'd be engaged in detraction. Instead, I might look to them and say, wow, I wish I were there. And it kind of bothers me that I'm not. But I see why they're there. And I'm going to try to strive to get to where they are. That's what we're talking about is zeal. On the other hand, we have pity. Eleos, this broad term that we can also translate as compassion, sympathy, and it consists in feeling pain at another person's undeserved pain, or perhaps even in some cases their deserved pain. But Aristotle talks about his undeserved pain. So whereas the malicious person sees somebody get hurt and they're like, yeah, stick it to them, that's great, they feel pleasure. The person who feels pity and instead says, oh, I wish I could help them. It bothers me that they're being hurt, that they're being put down, that they're being injured. So, for example, in relation to bullying, the person who feels pity will feel a sense of pain at the pain that the other person who's being bullied feels. The person who feels malice is going to, identify with the bully and think that it's great that the other person is being made to feel pain. The person who feels righteous indignation is going to be upset with the bully, saying you don't deserve to enjoy that feeling that you're getting by hurting somebody else. You can see all sorts of, I suppose the envious person would say, I wish I could be the bully. The zealous person is not going to want to be the bully. The zealous person would want to be the person who sets things right, I suppose. And so you see, all of these are tied in with our moral life, with how we evaluate other people and whether they deserve to have pleasure, deserve to have pain, deserve the good fortune or bad fortune, or treatment that they have from other people. These are very important emotions to our moral existence as human beings. And notice, some of them are by their own nature bad, envy and malice. Some of them are good. Aristotle also says in the Eudemian Ethics, not in the Nicomachean Ethics, that feeling, for example, nemesis, in a certain way contributes to the virtue of justice. So it doesn't automatically lead to it, but it kind of leads the way. And similarly, these vices lead to injustice. So these emotions, whether we feel them, how much we feel them, who we feel them in relation to, are quite important, and we don't want to overlook them.